we witness the typical Japanese salaryman who works non-stop and leads a quite dull social life. He keeps up his tedious and taxing routine until one day, realizing how meaningless his life really is, he had a heart attack. Later, as he opens his eyes, a woman is standing over him in what appears to be an ancient hospital. She says he looks quite sweet for someone connected to his father, but he doesn't seem to understand what's happening yet. He finally gets to see himself in the reflection of the tray she is holding as the maid comes into the room and serves the woman some tea. After being reborn as a baby named Arsluven, he had already started adjusting to his new existence here. 3 years later, he is now proficient in both reading and writing this language, and he has also gained some understanding about this planet. He has never seen a map like this before because he was born in the Summer Fourth Empire, which governs the Summer Fourth continent. He comes to the conclusion that this location is undoubtedly not Earth. He had the good fortune to be born into the aristocratic Luvan's family, which came with a large home prepared just for him and a personal chef. He also gained the knowledge that he possesses a unique power that no one else has ever had when he was resurrected. Entering the guards' training room, he requests permission to observe the guards in action. They all think ours is great, so there's no reason they can't let him watch. Though it's a little odd that a 3-year-old finds watching them fight to be so fascinating. He finds an opening to use his particular power when he observes a guard trying to wield his spear while he is moving about. He can view all of the guard Mylius stats thanks to this skill. Additionally, despite having a cavalry stat of only D, he has a B archery stat. Thus, it is evident to us that he would be far more appropriate to assume the job of an archer. Ours approaches Mylius after he loses his bout and inquires as to if he has ever thought of fighting his conflicts with a bow instead. Bows, in Mylius' opinion, are for cowards who relish their safety while launching an attack. Thus, even though you have never been caught with a weapon before, ours maintains that he believes Mylius could be a very skilled archer if he gave it a try. Although he wouldn't ordinarily consent to something like this, he gives in and chooses to give it a shot at least once because it's our request. Since he has never shot a bow before, he is unsure of his chances of hitting the target. However, ours gives him confidence, so he takes a stance and pulls the trigger. Mylius is in disbelief at what he just accomplished, as the first shot is a bullseye. He shoots multiple additional rounds at the target, all of which land in the center, and one of which even splits another arrow, just to be sure it wasn't a fluke. Upon witnessing Mylius's prowess with a bow, every other guard advises him to become an archer instead of a spearman, citing his lackluster performance with the weapon. However, they are still puzzled as to how ours was able to predict that Mylius would be skilled with a bow. He couldn't really describe his talent, so instead of stating that he can see people's stats, he merely refers to it as instinct. After testing it out, he is sure of his ability's precision, but for some reason, he cannot, for whatever reason, use it on himself. Ours father questioned him, as he was preparing dinner, if he had indeed uncovered Mylius's knack for archery. Raven Luvance is his father, and despite his mild temper, he always has a surly expression when he's not. Given that he used just his fighting skills to get from being a farmer to a nobleman, ours believes him to be an incredible man. If necessary, he can defeat 10 men by himself due to his immense strength. He advises ours to develop this talent-spotting instinct since, when the time comes for him to ascend to the throne and rule this kingdom, knowing how to recognize the skills of those around him will be extremely valuable. Since then, ours has researched a great deal about the Empire, which has made him understand that if he doesn't make some changes soon, he will be in serious trouble. Peasants around Summerforth are rising up in rebellion against their corrupt lords. As the future master of this place, he will have to lead his soldiers into combat if things continue this way, which might result in the fall of the Empire and other battles. However, he lacks the confidence to declare that he could win a war. He determines that in order to be ready for such a catastrophe, he must assemble a group of gifted individuals who will assist him on that fateful day. He leaves the house and travels into the city's streets, utilizing assessment to look for anyone who may have talent. But even after spending a lot of time looking and tiring out his eyes in the process, he hasn't yet discovered someone helpful. That moment, he saw an elderly woman refusing to serve a child and kicking him out of a store. Everyone witnesses this, but since they are all racists as well, they are unwilling to take the time to assist a Malkin. People hold low regard for the Malkin, who arrived in Summerforth from across the sea, as they are typically brought in as slaves. Ours walks up to him and presents a loaf of bread that he had on hand, knowing that the people won't just watch him get shunned. After the youngster eats the bread after some hesitation, Ours uses evaluation on him, and he learns that Rights is stacked when it comes to stats. His statistics rank among the greatest persons in history. Therefore, if given the chance to develop, he will undoubtedly become a formidable opponent. Rights finishes the bread, thanks Ours again for his charity, and leaves. However, Ours follows him since he doesn't want to allow such a gifted guy get away from him, and they eventually find themselves in a dark alley. Rights stops him and tells him that pursuing strangers down alleyways is not a good idea, but Ours interrupts and demands to put Rights on retainer. Rights assumes he's kidding, but Ours is being quite serious. He identifies himself as the Lord's son and invites Rights to come along again since he can tell Rights is a really gifted guy. Rights doesn't think he's as talented as Ours claims, and he knows that accepting a Malcolm like him would damage his family's reputation. Even though Ours promises to solve the problem, Rights rejects the offer and starts to leave. Ours starts to follow him as he leaves, fearing he might never find someone as talented as Rights again. In an effort to persuade him, he tries a different approach and offers to bribe him with as much delectable cuisine as his family's personal chef can provide. After Ours returns him home, Rights is shocked to learn that he was serious when he claimed to be the son of the Lord of the land. They enter, where Ours is offered appetizing-looking food. However, even the staff are racist, so they merely give Rights a bowl of beans and tell him he can't possibly expect to eat properly while he's in Malkin. They want him to leave the mansion and eat his day-old beans, but Ours will not allow his visitor to be treated with such blatant disrespect. They all apologize and order Rights some nice meals this time since he makes it obvious that he will be treated the same as any other guest. Ours questions Rights about his initial reason for being in Summerforth while he is savoring his lunch. He then goes on to say that he was a member of a group of mercenaries in the past, but that they were all slain on one of their missions. Ever since he survived, he has been living a vagrant life until he happened to come across this place. That's a heartwarming tale, but the butler is unconcerned and tells Ours to send the dirty Malkin lad away. Rights was brought here to become his official retainer, so Ours assures him that he won't be forcing him to leave anytime soon. That is an absurd proposal, in the butler's opinion, and his father would never approve of something like that. And he was correct, because as soon as Ours revealed his plans to his father, he categorically rejected the notion, arguing that Rights must be worthless as people like him are just not as good as Summerforth's residents. Ours is going to have to work some magic to get his father to agree to take Rights as a retainer, because even he is a racist. Like he did with Mylius, he informs him that he senses Rights has immense talent. Raven has faith in his son's ability to recognize genius, but there is no way Rights could have such extraordinary talent as he claims, because Summerforth residents are well aware that Malkins is incapable of accomplishing anything worthwhile. Ours is still adamant that Rights' support will be critical to the success of their domain game going forward. In order to verify Rights' talent, he advises Raven to offer him a test. Raven consents to test him, and if he passes, he will be able to enlist in the military. However, the test he suggests is a duel, which Rights must win in order to be accepted. Our concern is that, despite Rights' true talent, he won't be able to compete fairly with his father, because the latter has a greater prowess score than the former. Luckily, Raven is still a good man, so he won't engage in a major fight with a 14-year-old. To be a little more fair to Rights, he will give him a handicap, and in these circumstances, Ours believes Rights has a decent chance of winning. Raven believes they should go ahead and have the duel right. Now, since Rights is in agreement, Wrights pauses briefly as they leave to go battle Ours' father, wondering why Ours is working so hard to get someone like him as a retainer. He is thrilled with the offer, but given that he is always being harassed because he is a Malkin, it truly seems too good to be true. Ours reassures him that the only reason he is exerting so much energy is because he values Wrights. Wrights pledges to try his hardest to win because he knows that one day he will be the lord of the land and he wants Wrights at his side for that day. Upon reaching the practice grounds, everyone is perplexed as to what is happening. When the equipment is ready, Raven says that all Wrights has to do to win the bout is strike him once within the allotted time, and he also requests that practice swords and an hourglass be brought to them. If those are the prerequisites, Ours believes that this may go in his advantage since, even if Raven is the greatest swordsman in the land, Wrights' skill should be sufficient to at least deal him a blow. As the combat starts, Raven charges at Wrights with all of his might. Wrights is able to avoid it, but even with a practiced word, Raven may still cause damage. If the blow had connected, it would be clearing the fragments of his body off the ground. Even though Raven is stronger than he is, Wrights manages to hold his own against Raven during the battle. Raven is pursuing Wrights head-on right now, and the other troops are impressed that he can keep up with him at all, considering how many of them have been able to do so while he was being lenient with them.
Wrights is struck in the shoulder at that precise moment, sending him rebounding off the ground. Regaining his motivation to keep fighting, he stands back up and turns to face Ours, who is cheering him on. He then charges in with a new tactic. After dodging Raven's initial blow, he uses the glare of the weapon to obscure Raven's view and deliver a blow. Although Wright steps back to create distance, Raven is still able to parry the strike, and he declares the combat ended. Wright glances back to make sure he hasn't ran out of time. But even though it was only a small blow, Wright has still managed to hit Raven with the hard glass. Wright's recent accomplishment astounded everyone, and Raven congratulated him on his win, acknowledging that Ours was correct to point out Wright's extraordinary talent. He is confident that Wright has the potential to be a world-class swordsman in the future. After witnessing it firsthand, if he could locate such brilliance so readily, he had a bright career ahead of him. When the time came, he had been concerned about how Ours would handle the upheaval in the globe right now, but it appears he has nothing to worry about. It took a bit of hours for the lord of such a small village to make him the new monarch of the land. Wright has gained a lot of popularity among troops as well. After witnessing his abilities, and after some time, Ours comes to check on Wright's adjustment to his new life in this place. He has chosen to assume servant responsibilities, and is wearing his new uniform because he wants to lend a hand as much as he can. He also says how much he appreciates Ours for sparing him from a life of prostitution and vows to support him going forward in order to pay back that obligation. Episode 1 came to a conclusion with this. Thanks for watching.
Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please do subscribe to the channel and click on the screen for more contents like this. See you over there. Arigatou.